Greetings. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzen. He's Aaron McIntyre. And I forgot to get the gentleman's name. I'm wearing a new hoodie today. Here, let me lower this so you can see it. All right. Can you see that? These are over at TPUSA Faith. God is greater than government. See, this is when you start speaking my love language with stuff like this. Okay. And, it's like Reverend James. I forgot. Forgive me. I taped an interview with Eric Metaxas before we went on the air today and lost track of time because I meant to look this guy's name up and give him props. Have you guys seen the video of the guy who went to the school board? The black minister who went to the school board and just lit into him for all the woke stuff, and he's wearing this hoodie.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that video?
Okay.
Yeah. So I saw that guy's video, man, and I'm like, bro, I have to get me one of those. So I ordered that hoodie. I had the wife order,
dude.
Yes, I had the wife order that for me in the next 30 minutes, and it came in yesterday. So I'm wearing it today. All right. So I mean, I love stuff like this. So thank you to him. I wanted to give you credit. I forgot your name. Forgive me. I'm very sorry. I'll look it up on Twitter when we're done here and make sure I give you a tip of the cap for the inspiration for the swag we are wearing today. All right. It is a Wednesday. You guys know the drill. We will have buy, seller, hold. Daniel Horowitz will join us at the end of the hour. A quick update. I got a note from our distribution guy for Nefarious from Bryce yesterday. And he's like, man, I'm hearing from theater chains that they are hearing a lot from people around the country calling in to request Nefarious. So I got a ton of emails from you guys in the last 24 hours, sending in, here's what they're telling me. Here's the email they sent back or the message that I got returned. Or I thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you. I mean, you guys are absolutely making a difference for the movie, and I wanted to thank each and every one of you. We also got a lot of requests for the videos that we showed for Pop Culture Tuesday yesterday, both the crowd reaction to Nefarious at the Detroit screening, as well as the interview I did with the pastor afterwards. We now have all of those videos linked up on all of my socials right now. So at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, look for Steve Deace on Facebook, MeWe, Gab, and Getter, at Steve Deace Show on Instagram and TikTok as well. I think Anna has put them over there. And then, and she'll be joining us at the bottom of the hour, by the way. So I think my daughter has put them there, and it's up on Truth Social at Real Steve Deace too. So I know a lot of you are like, hey, I want to show those videos to my pastor, to people in my church that are having reservations. You can go get those videos now and share them and help us to get the word out as you have been helping us incredibly so. Leading up to the release date 2 weeks from Friday. So thank you to each and every one of you. All right, today's show, I mentioned Anastasia at the bottom of the hour. Next hour, buy, seller, hold. I mentioned Daniel Horowitz will join us. But let us get started, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by another horrid milestone. Today marks the 3-year anniversary of the Trump administration's decision to extend 15 days to slow the spread for an additional 30 days.
Beautiful day in the Rose Garden. Tremendous distance between chairs. Social distancing. You practice it very well. Therefore, we will be extending our guidelines to April 30th. To slow the spread. The better you do, the faster this whole nightmare will end.
Of course, that decision is unforgivable, unleashing years of destruction and likely costing Trump a victory outside the margins of cheating in 2020. It also provided a new blueprint for future so-called health emergencies. The Biden administration has been mulling over an agreement with the World Health Organization that would essentially, despite what the fact checkers say, hand what's left of the U.S. sovereignty over to the WHO in times of a pandemic. Senator Ron Johnson added an amendment to a bill this week which sought to block any efforts to join such treaties. Democrats, of course, shot it down.
Let me just list a few of the examples of some of the provisions of this draft, I'll call it a treaty. Currently, it would require a substantial new U.S. financial commitment to an international body without a proportional voting power. It would require the U.S. to give the World Health Organization 20% of vaccines and other pandemic-related products produced during future pandemics. It includes a heavy emphasis on the transfer of intellectual property rights to the World Health Organization. It gives the World Health Organization a leading role in fighting misinformation and disinformation, and as the Twitter files reveal, that leads to censorship and the suppression and abridging of freedom of speech.
A new report estimates that 26.6 million people were injured, 1.36 million disabled, and 300,000 excess deaths can be attributed to the COVID-19 jab damages in 2022 alone, which cost the economy nearly $150 billion. Research firm Finance Technologies, founded by and operated by former BlackRock portfolio manager Ed Dowd, split the impact of the vaccines into 4 broad categories to estimate the human costs associated with the COVID-19 jab. Anyway, here's Dr. Anthony Fauci at Georgetown University yesterday giving a lecture called Lessons Learned from the Pandemic.
Lesson 9. Why do I know about this? Misinformation is truly the enemy of pandemic control. And unfortunately, I think we all know, I don't have to tell this audience this, is that we are living in an absolute sea of misinformation and disinformation that is propagated very effectively by social media. And I'm not so sure how we're going to get around that.
We now know more about the horrifying final moments of a couple of the victims of Monday's act of domestic terrorism against Christians in Nashville, Tennessee. We now know 60-year-old Catherine Kuntz, head of Covenant School, ran towards the mentally ill woman with the guns in an attempt to stop her before she was shot. We also know 9-year-old Evelyn Deakhouse saw the woman and attempted to pull a fire alarm to warn the other students before she too was murdered. Nashville police are currently refusing to release the manifesto of the trans school shooter. And now this is a tweet sent from Jocelyn Berry. Jocelyn Berry is the press secretary for pretender to the Arizona governorship, Katie Hobbs. On Monday night, Berry posted this tweet with the following gif. Quote, "When we see transphobes." For those of you listening, the gif she posted is of a woman pointing handguns in both of her hands. The obvious implication is that she wants to murder those who think boys are boys and girls are girls. As of last night, that tweet was still posted. As of this morning, Berry has locked her Twitter account. On the other hand, many on Twitter, including Federalist CEO Sean Davis and the Daily Wire's Luke Roziak, have been locked out of their Twitter accounts for bringing attention to this weekend's so-called Trans Day of Vengeance, a not-so-subtle attempt to stoke violence by Antifa and other militant rainbow groups. Last weekend, a staffer for Senator Rand Paul was brutally attacked with a knife and stabbed within an inch of his life in broad daylight, less than a couple of miles away from the U.S. Capitol. Police arrested a suspect, 42-year-old Glenn Neal, who had been in federal prison serving a 12-year sentence, but was released early for good conduct just hours before committing the attack. According to court documents, Neal told investigators he heard a voice saying someone was coming to get him prior to the attack. Joe Biden was in Durham, North Carolina yesterday at a semiconductor plant when a hot mic caught what his handlers were saying to him as he walked over to a podium to speak.
Down here?
Yes, sir. Down the ramp. And we have people lined up on the left over here. Some union leaders and workers.
Hey, guys and ladies.
Your mark is going to be the blue one to the left.
How y'all doing?
You've got a blue mark, and that's okay.
I'll stand my blue mark, and then I'm going to say hello to each one of you.
Yes, sir. I'll help you get started.
Donald Trump went on Sean Hannity's show on Fox News the other night to defend his decision to appoint the corruptocrat named Chris Wray as director of the FBI.
You happy with Chris Wray?
But just so you understand, I put Chris Wray in because I wanted to have somebody in there that everybody, including the other side, really wanted. It may not have been the right move. Let's see. Time will tell, okay? But I wanted to have somebody in the FBI because I'm an honorable guy. I'm an honest guy. I may have made a mistake, but I put somebody in that the other side, everybody agreed to. You know who recommended him to me? Chris Christie. Okay, he recommended him. And that's okay. I don't mind that. I've taken Chris Christie's recommendations before. And other people wanted Christopher Wray. And people from the other side wanted Christopher Wray.
And finally, this from the Babylon Bee. Elijah criticized by Israel for unloving satire towards the prophets of Baal. And that's what happened while we were away.
If that is not satire, but truth-telling on the state of the current American church. I mean, that's cash money there at the end. All right, let us get to what is in the montage today. And really quick, the best you can say about the Katie Hobbs official who posted those guns, the best thing you could say is she's a complete and total moron with no self-awareness on any level whatsoever. Except you can't say that, because if that were true, she would have deleted the thing once she saw what she had done. Right? That's what she would have done.
Probably.
So you don't even get that. She's projecting. I mean, these people engage actively in policies that kill people. So I don't know why you would be shocked to learn that they are fine with you being dead.
You saw the entire media across the board make excuses for what happened in Nashville.
Correct. So that is yet another reminder of what we are dealing with here. And there is no sharing a country with any of this. And it isn't going to share one with you. It is not. So it's revival or bust. People ask me sometimes, what do I mean when I say bust? What's bust look like? Antietam. It looks like Antietam. That's what bust looks like. Can't stop, won't stop. Unless they're made to stop. And the lesson of history, sadly, is there's only two ways things like this stop. And I have to wonder, and I'm a Christian, so I prefer the revival way. People get saved that way. Mercy abounds that way. The other way, they don't. So I'm on team mercy, team revival. That's the team I'm on. But if you've ever read a history book, this will get solved one way or the other. I would prefer it got solved the Jesus way. That's why I'm front and center with my biblical worldview, because I'm trying to do whatever I can to play my part in that occurring. If you are one of those people, though, if you're one of those Jeff Flake, John McCain Republicans, I talked about them after they got done stealing the election from Kerry Lake, remember? Mm-hmm. And I said to them at the time, I hope it's not your kid. I hope it's your kid's not the next one that you wake up and blew his brains out because of a fentanyl addiction. Hope it's not yours. But I'm sure you'll be comforted in the knowledge of knowing that you didn't vote for the candidate that was going to shut the border down, or at least claim she was going to. None of us know the future. Maybe she wouldn't have done it. I don't know. But at least she was claiming she was going to try. For the candidate who said, I'm pro-lawlessness. And you didn't do it just because you thought the other one was too mean to your idol. How you feeling this morning looking at that tweet? You want to talk about mean tweets?
Yeah.
You want to have a lecture about mean tweets? Guns blazing if you won't let us mutilate kids. How you like those apples? More like, how do you like those serpents? Because you done already took a bite of the apple. That's why you voted the way you did. That seems really warm, fuzzy, really suburban, really unifying, right?
Love is love, Steve.
Love is love, indeed. So, hope it's not your kid that comes home one day successfully convinced by Katie Hobbs and her ilk that they're not really in the right body. Hope it's not yours, but it's okay. It's okay. When they went and got their balls cut off and their chest bound, be comforted in the knowledge of knowing that you didn't vote for the person who said something mean about John McCain or Jeff Flake once. I'm sure as your son has a gaping void between his legs where his man parts once were, and a deeply embedded psychosis, if not outright demonically possessed, I'm sure you'll be okay with the knowledge that you voted for safer tweeting. So, congratulations to you on that. While we're on the topic of idolatry, see, I have this strange thing that I just despise all idols. I'm not a big fan of anybody wielding them in my presence. Well, I'm human except for the idols that I like, of course. So that's why I need people to confront me at times. But I'm not a fan of idolatry, no matter if you're wearing my uniform or not. Which admittedly makes me difficult to get along with at times. Right? A whole bunch of y'all just cheered the idolatry that I just absolutely smashed barely a minute ago, right? Probably a lot of people listening in, pumping the fist. Yeah, tell them, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Let's smash another idol, shall we?
Always.
Not sure how many people will cheer this one, though. Because it is the 3rd anniversary of 30 Days to Slow the Spread. And remember, there's a record of everything I say are right. Right, wrong, indifferent. I try to maintain consistency. Everything I have is on all my social media channels. Everything is. I think the only thing I've ever deleted that I can think of is the Carly Fiorina full vagina stuff, just because they kept using it against Ted Cruz. Okay? Maybe there's something else, but off the top of my head, that's the only thing I can think of I've ever actually deleted. Everything else, you can follow the arc of my opinions from the dawn of when I started social media accounts a decade or so ago. So it's all an open book. I try to practice the most consistency I can. I'm human. I don't hit that mark all the time, but I have maintained this entire time that it was actually 30 days to slow the spread that ended the Trump presidency, not 15 days to flatten the curve. I mean, I wouldn't even done that, but no one can fault anybody for not knowing what we're dealing with and saying, let's just make sure we know what's going on. But 30 days to slow the spread was when the Trump presidency ended on that day. The presidency was handed to Fauci and Birx. Fauci was essentially given his own fiefdom to run now Blue America, and Debbie Birx ran the Trump White House, as is openly depicted in Scott Atlas's brutal but brilliant read of a book. She ran the White House until the last day of it. Both of them, in my opinion, right now ought to be on trial before a tribunal for their lives. I've been pretty consistent on that too.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think on this 3rd anniversary of 30 Days to Slow the Spread, why do I think that was the day the presidency was lost? Because this now created some nexus of indefinite period where these blue state governors or soft red state governors like Mike DeWine could essentially just do to their people whatever they want now. And that's really when all the ballot harvesting, because remember, 15 days to flatten the curve, man, we didn't know we'd ever have an election again. We weren't sure if we were going to live or not, right? We go through 15 days of this, and outside of New York and Seattle and a few other places, the rest of America is not a pile, as used to say, of smoldering ash. So we get to 30 days. That's now when the tyranny really now kicks into high gear. And it's clear that we're not going anywhere for a while here now. And he lost the whole narrative of his presidency and never recovered it from that point. And that set into motion the ballot harvesting, stealing of the election, everything else. That decision. So I think today's a good day to set down this marker. I want to make a promise to you today. And I want you to hold me to it. Although I'm thinking a group of you aren't going to want to do that. But we'll see. Let me start with stating this as if it's not already obvious. If the 2024 election turns out to be the guy who overturned Roe, the greatest evil of the last generation, versus a demonic disciple of it, I will ballot harvest for Donald Trump myself. I will literally walk around West Des Moines with an open container soliciting people's ballots. Okay? But that election is not today. Today we are having an election to determine the best champion against the greatest evil of this generation, this one. In my opinion, you may have a different one, and that's cool. You might be right, I don't know, but this is mine. And since the show bears my name, this is going to be the plumb line of the show. In my opinion, that is what's the greatest threat of this generation? Everything that COVID and Operation Warp Speed hath wrought is. Including bringing us to the brink of societal ruin, dangerous cliffs of excess deaths, inhumane tyranny, mental health, economic turmoil, etc. And frankly, Trump made every wrong decision possible to set it all in motion. This is an indisputable fact. This is an indisputable fact. This is an indisputable fact. Don't argue with me. I've got the receipts and a photographic memory. You'll lose. I'll make you look dumb because you'll be lying to me and yourself. Don't try it. Like, don't try dunking on Dikembe Mutombo. Don't try guarding Michael Jordan. Don't come here with this. You're probably better at me at a lot of things. This won't be one of them, however. You'll get embarrassed. I will enjoy it. You won't. Any claims to the contrary, that this is anything other than an indisputable fact, is frankly gaslighting. Whether you're gaslighting yourself or others, that's what it is. Now, his opponent, why did I not name the other candidates? Because the other candidates, to me, aren't morally qualified for the position, and I'm not sure I'd even vote for them in a general. So to me, this is a two-person race. Someone suggested this morning on Twitter that Ron Johnson should run, and what would I do if Ron Johnson ran? That would be very interesting. I mean, after all, this is my number one plumb line of an issue. Who has been better on this than he has been? No one has been. I mean, he's the only politician in the entire country we can say has actually helped us do our job. Mm-hmm. We learned about things involving treatments and other stuff we didn't even know. We learned it from his subcommittee, right? Right.
And it's only recently that Rand Paul has actually started talking about side effects of the jab.
Correct. He had previously just gone after Fauci and mandates and the origin of the virus, which is great. Mm-hmm. But I mean, Ron Johnson has been friggin' Wyatt Earp, okay? So I may have to reconsider, you know, how I think the race currently stands if Ron John decided to get in. But he's not in right now. So to me, there are only two candidates that I think are morally qualified for my vote. That's why Trump's opponent is Ron DeSantis, in my view. Now, initially, he made several of the same mistakes, too. And by the way, if you're a DeSantis stan, don't come at me with, well, he did that because the Trump White House told him to do that. No, not doing that. Going to be consistent. If I'm not going to tolerate, Trump had his hands tied. He's the friggin' president, man. Well, they told the truth about hydroxy and ivermectin, but they wouldn't do it. He's the friggin' president, man. He runs the executive branch. All these agencies, like NIAID, FDA, CDC, who do they all report to ultimately? Him. Buck stops with him. Similarly, don't come at me with, well, you say some pressure from the Trump White House. That's why. No. Whose signature was on the shutdown order in Florida? Whose signature was it? Was it Anthony Fauci's signature, Todd? No. Was it Donald Trump's signature, Jared Kushner's signature, Debbie Burks' signature? Whose signature was on it?
Probably Ron DeSantis.
Ron DeSantis' signature was on it. So who's responsible for it?
That would be Ron.
And so whose signature was on everything that came out of Washington?
That would be Donald.
So who's responsible for that?
Donald.
That's right. We hold men accountable on this show. We don't make excuses for grown-ass men on this show. Find another pet. So Ron DeSantis made several of the same mistakes too. Here's the difference, though. When confronted with these truths, that these were mistakes, he turned away from the wrong path he was on, and this is in another context, this is the literal definition of repentance, turning away from that which you are acknowledging is wrong and going a different way. That's the literal definition of the term. That's exactly what he did. He turned away from what didn't work and embarked upon the righteous road. To this day, Trump has done exactly none of that. He has not only admitted no error, but maintained his heinous lockdowns and poison pokes saved millions of lives. That is a lie. No other way to put it. Not spin, not embellishment, flat out lie. We must learn now if he has truly learned anything before vesting our power in him again. Because the enemy, the real one, the one that we're really up against here, not Democrats, not lefties, colleges, universities, the real one. The enemy is aware he buckled the last time and will absolutely test him accordingly again if we do empower him once more. At least, what does that look like? What did the mistakes that he made cost us? There are at least 10,000 small and family-owned businesses that got erased by the decisions that were made on this day 3 years ago that are never coming back. Hundreds of thousands have, quote, died suddenly, and they aren't coming back either. That's the cost of buckling. And we're the ones paying it still. We have a primary to determine this answer, the answer of whether he has learned any lessons. Now, I know some of you don't want this truth, but I love you too much to let you live by lies. So I vow on this third anniversary of the wicked and immoral 30 days to slow the spread calamity, that I will tell you the truth during this testing, as I did the whole time Trump was failing us and failing his test before. And I will use, I vow this too, I will use every ounce of the Iowa caucus process I have access to in order to keep this vow. And there will be no complaints or threats from above me, below me, either side of me, that will deter me. That is my promise to you. I'm going to do the same thing I did 15 minutes ago when you cheered me. I'm going to tell the truth and smash idols. That's what I'm going to do. If I have said something that isn't true, not that you didn't agree with, not that you don't like, if I have said something that is factually in error, by all means bring it to my attention. Has there ever been a time you guys have ever worked with me that you guys or anyone else has claimed that I have said something factually in error and earnestly made that claim that I have not addressed it or been willing to entertain it? Not a single time.
You go out of your way. You actually read emails from people when they were correct and you weren't, and you bring it up as fast as you can.
Correct. Your excuses for Cheeto Jesus aren't claims. They're just excuses. Your fondling of your Cheeto Jesus idol. I love monkey. Love my monkey. Okay. Dance to sprockets on your own time. Won't work. Your threats. I'll stop listening. Oh my gosh. I have to wonder, do you ever Steve Deace? Have you even Steve Deaced, bro? I am more inclined to actually gut Trump in response to that unfairly than I am to actually go the other way. That won't work with me. I was actually strangely encouraged by the Chris Wray video watching it again because he said, I may have made a mistake. Straight up, that encouraged me. Maybe there's a chance. There's only two people in this race right now that I think are morally worth my vote. And we're up against the armies of Mordor. So do we have a lot of generals right now to turn to?
No.
No. Believe me, no matter what it may or may not do to Ron DeSantis' presidential aspirations, I would love nothing more for Donald Trump to have a little bit more self-awareness than none that he has demonstrated thus far. So that's all I care about is the truth, man. That's it. That's my only motivation. Every decision we make, have ever made, has always been about what do we think is true. That is all that I care about. A woman wrote me on Twitter this morning. She says she's vaccine injured by the Moderna vaccine, but she's still going to back Trump because she doesn't like DeSantis as donors. She's talking about people, by the way, who were used to be Trump donors, who switched to DeSantis because they don't think Trump can win. So apparently it was totally fine when they wrote Trump checks, but now that they are writing DeSantis checks, now they're terrible. I don't understand. I don't understand. I probably cannot be made to understand why you prefer the guy who brags about the poison that gave you your affliction and has no remorse for it, and turned your back on the guy that is going after the people who did this to you with a grand jury. I don't understand that. In fact, don't make me understand it because I don't think you can. Everything you would say would just sound more ridiculous to me. Nevertheless, even though I think it's ridiculous, I'll keep fighting for people like her because I think they deserve it, even though they'll hate me while I'm doing it. See, some of you hate me right now. You don't realize I'm doing the same thing I was doing previously when you cheered me. I'm fighting for you. Because the truth is our friend. The truth is its own reward. The truth is nothing to fear. And the truth sets us free. This country desperately needs truth. Desperately. So I'm going to do whatever I can with whatever magnitude, force multiplier of a platform I can bring to the table to do my part. To be a conduit for truth. You know, you've heard me talk about these amazing altitude red wines from Bonner Private Wines before. These are maybe the favorite client we have for Todd. And we all love the wines too. We've all tried them. They're absolutely delicious red wines from Malbec grapes that are grown at 9,000 plus feet of altitude deep in the Andes Mountains, with families that have been at this now for going on a second century. You can't beat them. And that's why we want to make them as affordable for you as we absolutely can. We've got an amazing offer that if this doesn't get it going for you, nothing will. All right? Because we're even throwing in a bonus bottle of their small batch limited production wine from their exclusive wine cellar. So if you go to bonnerprivatewines.com/Steve, that's bonnerprivatewines.com/Steve, you'll get 50% off plus free shipping. Used to be half off the wine and half off the shipping. Now we'll give you shipping for free, which is a pretty big deal when you're talking about imported wines, all right? 4 bottles for the price of 3 with 50% off and free shipping. You won't beat it. It's getting to be grill season here soon. Some parts of the country, it has been the entire time. Red wine goes great with a good steak. bonnerprivatewines.com/Steve. That's bonnerprivatewines.com/Steve. All right, let's welcome in my oldest daughter, Anastasia. Good to see you, Princess. How are you?
I'm doing good, Dad. How are you?
I'll be doing very well if you're telling me I don't have to be subjected to any TikTok videos this week.
No TikTok videos this week at all. I thought, because I was supposed to be on yesterday and then I wasn't. So then I was
You thought you would punish us?
I was like, should I do this? And I sat there for a second and I was like, no. I made that decision, even though...
Smart call.
Everybody seems to really like it. So maybe I'll bring it back soon.
I mean, if I would have come in here, because wasn't Mike Pence supposed to be here this morning?
Yes.
And he didn't show up?
Yes.
Mike Pence didn't show, guys.
He was supposed to be here in this building?
Mike Pence didn't show when he was needed. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Mike Pence didn't show.
You know my rule about that.
Mike Pence not showing up for something.
There's only like 3 people on a list. Well, I'm going to stop talking now. But yeah, Todd has a problem with Mike Pence.
I was told if he's going to be in the building, I will be taking a vacation day.
Can you contain yourself? Yes. I've got a few things I need to say to you, sir. But if I would have come in here and had to walk past Mike Pence and then have my oldest daughter, the chip off the old block, say, I've got more TikToks. I don't think I would have handled it very well. So thank you for having mercy upon your old man. Thank you. What are we doing instead?
So we're going to play 2 truths, 1 lie. This is what people voted for. TikTok trivia was, it was they were neck and neck. Okay. So I could have chosen that. So I just want to say you're welcome.
You made an executive decision.
Yeah.
All right. That's my princess. Thank you.
So you guys each sent me a submission. So I'll read them off and then you guys will vote on which one you think is the lie.
Okay. Do we know whose is who? Will you tell us that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell us.
All right. So that way, the other 2 guys then, once you say, all right, this is Todd's, the other 2 of us should be the ones that determine.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
and you guys none of you gave me like the answers, so I don't know the answers either. And then I thought about doing 2 truths, 1 lie for myself, but then I was like, he's your dad, so I did
don't do that.
I did not. I was thinking about what I do, and I was like, I'm not going to do any of these.
Right now, you are 3 for 3. You gave me a heads up this morning. Mike Pence might be here. You got to love it. She did that. She texted me. I think Mike Pence is going to be here. I thought you should know.
Nice.
So you gave me a heads up. All right. That's great. You spared me from TikToks, and you realized that I don't want to play 2 truth, 1 lie with your daughter, because that would be flat out creepy. I feel very honored as a father right this minute, in fact. So thank you.
Well, next week you're going to feel like the hammer is dropping.
Yes, of course she will make me pay for all of this. Yes, absolutely. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so we'll start with you, Dad.
All right, so you 2 figure it out. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So these are his 3. He once accidentally went to the women's restroom covering a Drake women's basketball game. He once won the city's spelling bee contest in the 5th grade. And he once took a former major league pitcher to the warning track in batting practice.
Spelling bee one was on your list last time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
It was?
Yes.
So
no, it wasn't.
This one is easy.
It was not.
The 3rd one is a lot.
I did not do that.
Thanks for taking time out of your schedule, Dad, and putting thought into my segment. I appreciate it.
I thought that I did, actually.
This is the most, I hats off, respect. This is the most on-brand Steve Deace thing ever. The 3rd one is a lie, not because he took him to the warning track, but because he hit a home run, right?
No.
Oh.
No. I did take former Major League pitcher Jerry Royce from the LA Dodgers.
Hit a home run.
Who was a World Series pitcher. And of course, he was like pushing like 50 at the time. And he came out to do batting practice. I worked for the Iowa Cubs. You did a promotion where you could, via my show, come out and take batting practice from a former major league pitcher. And Jerry Royce and I got to be buds, man. He was on my show constantly. We talked all the time. And, we went out there. It was my turn to swing the bat. And in his defense, I mean, this is pre-weight loss, man. So I walked out there carrying a good 4 bills. All right. And I just got lucky. I just closed my eyes. And as soon as I saw him start to throw, I just closed my eyes and swung. And those 4 bills hit the ball and took it all the way to the warning track, man. And I was pretty hyped. The look on his face, he was not hyped. And Jerry Royce did not speak to me again the rest of the season. Would walk right by me, say nothing. He was beyond humiliated that this morbidly obese tool took him to the warning track at the stadium. And I understand that, and I respect it. So that one is true, yes.
I've heard that story before, so I'm going to say the bathroom is the lie.
Yeah.
That's not the lie.
The spelling bee is the lie?
The spelling bee is the lie. In the fifth grade, I was part of each year in Grand Rapids Public Schools, and I don't know if they still do it. They did it back then. One boy and one girl from every school, their academic achievement level was high enough that they were selected to go to basically a school for the gifted called the Zoo School.
Time.
Yeah, but
so that's the next chapter. That's many layers of Zoo School.
That's what I got in fifth grade. I've never won a spelling bee, never even been in one, I don't think. But no, I went to cover a Drake women's basketball game. It was one of Lisa Bluter, who's now the Iowa coach. They're in the Final Four this weekend. Yeah. It was one of her last games at Drake. They were hosting the Missouri Valley Conference tournament at Drake University, I think it was. And they were in the finals, I think against Creighton or somebody. And I had to go to the bathroom really bad at halftime. I'd never covered a game at the Knapp Center before, and so I tried to beat the crowd like at the last time out before halftime, and it was like 7 seconds left. So I'm like, I'm just going to get in there and get out before the crowd comes in. Just ran to the bathroom.
So you were setting trends before the trends were setting themselves.
Yes, yeah, unintentionally. And, I had to go number 2, okay? I had to go number 2. So I run to the bathroom. That's why I didn't pay attention. There weren't any urinals on the door, And so I do my business, and I look down to get some toilet paper, and I'm like, what is this other thing here on the wall? I don't know what it is, okay? I don't know why there's a second thing on the wall, okay? And all of a sudden I start hearing, as I'm cleaning up here, I start hearing a bunch of voices of women, and I'm like,
oh, dear God.
Dear God, it's exactly what I thought. Now I know what it is. And I'm like, I am going to get arrested. Okay. And so I just closed my eyes, and I put I just, because now you're going to see my shoes. I mean, I'm wearing a size 12. Everybody's going to see that's not a woman. Okay. Now they wouldn't bite an eyelash.
What I'm saying.
Okay.
You get a medal, not arrested.
Yeah. In 2001 or whatever this was, or 1999, people were like, why is there a size 12 pair of shoes in the women's bathroom on a stall? So I put my feet up, just kept the thing locked, said not a word, and just closed my eyes and waited until the whole halftime rush was done. And then the game started, and I'm praying, let nothing great happen while I'm in here. And I quickly just looked around the corner, snuck out, and got out of there without anybody ever knowing, and got back to center court and just covered the game. But that's a true story that did happen to me. Yeah.
Is this your first time telling people this story, or have you told it on air before?
I've never heard this story before.
You've never heard it before?
No.
Okay.
And that's how things should have stayed.
Just, I hadn't thought about that in a long time until I saw Lisa get to the Final Four over the weekend. I'm like, oh yeah, I used to cover Drake basketball, and then I remembered. And there was that time I went to the wrong bathroom accidentally. Yeah, that was almost a scandal. So there you go. Okay.
Okay, let's do Todd next.
All right.
Todd says he majored in poli-sci, has been to a church with a president, and owns a really cheap grill.
I know the lie.
What do you think it is?
It's the first one. You majored in sociology, didn't you?
Correct.
See, I was thinking that you did major in poli-sci. I guess I didn't know that.
I remember because one time I accidentally, I didn't know this about Todd, and I made a joke about people who majored in sociology.
It was a good joke.
It was all true.
Yes.
And he's living proof of it, for goodness sakes.
And not only did I interviewed it, I majored in sociology at the University of Wisconsin.
So you got completely worked over and survived that. Who was the president you went to church with?
We were out for July 4th out in Kennebunkport, Maine. And so
a Bush?
I went with George H.W. Bush. He did the readings. It was really, really nice, and it was right there at his the original Episcopal old stone church right on the water there. It was really, really neat. And then I ended up printing the scripture, had a picture of it, got it printed up for my dad. That meant a lot to him. He thought that was pretty cool. Yeah.
I knew that I own a really cheap grill was true, because that's, I could triple Todd's pay. He'd still just use that cheap grill just so he could say, I own a really cheap grill. That's on brand for you.
It is, and you did a really nice thing for me as a Christmas present once in that regard concerning something else. But I've learned my lesson on the grill thing. My wife once got a really nice grill for me, and this is when things were a little tighter, and I made her take it back. I said, honey, that's too nice. Cheap grills, they're cheap for a reason. It is worth, if you like grilling, it's worth spending the money on a good grill, and I think next time I'm going to do it.
Okay.
And then last but not least is Aaron. Aaron says he has smoked a total of 3 briskets in his life. He nearly fell into the Grand Canyon, and he accidentally caught a water moccasin.
I am going to say it's absolutely true that he nearly fell into the Grand Canyon. He took that drive a few years ago before he got married.
Yeah, 2 of them.
Yeah. And so you want to talk peak millennial, out there with a selfie stick, nearly falling into the Grand Canyon is pretty close to peak millennial. So I got to think that's true.
He's trying to trick us with the brisket thing.
I think he smoked a lot more than 3.
But he smoked a lot of things. Maybe he's pork butts, but not briskets. This is a total McIntyre mind game he's playing with. He's trying to make the moccasin thing throw us off. I think he has only done 3 briskets, and the rest has been a lot of other stuff.
You do think that's true? Okay. I'll
So
let you make the final
true,
call.
then? Yeah.
What do you think? So you think the water moccasin is the lie?
Yes.
All right, we'll go with the water moccasin as the lie.
Todd, you had me pegged this time and last time up until you gave your final answer. The water moccasin thing is true, and I will maintain that to my death.
Well, you're not even...
I've only smoked a total...
He's 26.
I've only smoked a total of 2 briskets in my life.
See?
Come on, guys, not 3, only 2.
It was even less. Listen.
That's what made me think, because you got to think with you, with me, you got to think is, all right, whatever is the most embarrassing, fantastical one is absolutely true every time. Okay, that's how I roll. With you, whatever is the absolute crankiest, most stubborn option has to be true. Go with that. Okay, so cheap grill. All right, and then with Aaron, it is. You mentioned them. I agree. It was a mind game. That's why the trick was I've smoked 3. Okay, like some very specific
number,
outlier, odd number. Okay, why does that matter? With you've only smoked 3 because that's the lie. I've only done 2. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Yes.
Yep.
So basically, it's another way of saying I'm Ross, you're Joey, or no, you're Chandler. He's Joey. That's essentially what we're saying here, all right? That would be a Joey play. I only smoked 2. All right, that's why I got you. All right, there you go. Yes. All right, good stuff. Thank you, Princess.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. And please, next week. Actually, I think you're off next week.
Yeah.
Because we're in Dallas for the premiere next week.
And if she isn't, you can make it that way. I mean, if we're going to go down that road.
Should we have a moratorium on TikTok videos?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. That's 9 ayes. Only 3 people work on this show. I think the ayes have it. Okay. I'm even getting emails from people now that are like,
see,
no
and
Moss.
I get emails
Please
of people that
mercy.
are like, okay.
Keep torturing him.
2 can play it this next week. When I come on next week, we'll compare emails. I'll bring the receipts.
This has opened up a whole lot. If people came to Aaron and I, torture Steve. No, you let your daughter on the show. It's like torture your father. Oh, this is happening now.
Yes.
This is what is.
She's the sweetie. She gets away with it. I can't stand you guys though, so you don't. Okay, you're men. You get away with nothing. She's my daughter. She can get away with whatever she wants. That's how.
You
rolls.
guys heard it. He
Except
said
for more TikTok
he
videos.
said it. And thank you for having me on.
And scene. Yes. All right. Good to see you, sweetie. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this part of the show brought to you by our friends over at Jace Medical. Do not get caught flat-footed again when they try to kill you again. As you know, again, we're celebrating the 3-year anniversary of 30 days to slow the spread. How many lives would have been saved if early treatments had not been denied? The answer is tragic and incalculable. That's why be forewarned and forearmed, courtesy of Jace Medical right now. Get the Jace case of venerable, proven antibiotics like doxycycline, amoxicillin, which we had a shortage of earlier this year. Make sure you've got the peace of mind to know that you are prepared should we go anywhere from a quiet place to just a repeat of what transpired 3 years ago. Have that peace of mind and those antibiotics, because they might be the next ones. I mean, they're going to take if Merck is going to take a drug that it won a Nobel Prize for, and then a few years later dare to write a letter calling it dangerous, there's nothing these people won't do, especially when they're not held accountable for the stuff they already did. All right, Jace Medical, J as in Jeff, or jump at this. JaceMedical.com is where you want to go. JaceMedical.com, and use the promo code DACE for a discount on the Jace case. Promo code DACE for the discount when you go to JaceMedical.com.
A couple of pieces of news, I guess, that broke in the last half hour. If I can break in here with before the end of the hour.
Sure.
Jocelyn Berry, that is the press secretary for the pretender to the Arizona governorship that we talked about in the first segment. She has indeed resigned this morning. Also, the Manhattan grand jury in the Trump case has taken a break due to a previously scheduled hiatus.
You don't say. You don't say. Absolutely, I think that Trump and conservative media turned the tables on them.
Oh, yes. No question.
And cornered them.
No question.
And now, it's what I said last week, that this is the Homer Simpson gif, and that DA is calculating right now what does more damage to my future political aspirations. A ham-fisted indictment that will collapse. Once the indictment comes out, everything the grand jury saw will become a matter of public record, and they can't hide any of it. They will lose control of the narrative. So is that worse to my future political aspirations, or just memory holding this entire thing and moving on?
Which begs the question, regarding to how you started the show, why doesn't he do this all the time on things like COVID? Why is he hiding his light under a bushel basket on that? Why isn't he going aggressive, like all in?
John Newton was a slave trader. Came to repentance and wrote the most powerful hymn that's ever been written outside of one of the Psalms. Imagine if the guy who authored the jab was made to be confronted with its dangers and became a true John Newton champion for justice for it. Exactly. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. My name is Steve Deace. His name is Todd Erzin. His name is Aaron McIntyre. What is your name? Let us know via the stevedeace.com inbox. Steve at stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me as well at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. Don't forget Real Steve Deace at Real Steve Deace over on Truth Social too. And thank you to all of you that are podcast listeners to this show. You're a big part of our audience. Please, if you have yet to do so, leave us a 5-star review, hit subscribe or follow, however, or whichever applies to however you podcast the program. And thank you to each and every one of you that have done that for the show already. We are very, very appreciative to each and every one. Want to remind you, in case you missed it earlier, they have these over at TPUSA Faith. And I saw one of their pastors wearing these at a city council or a school board that he went and laid down ordinance prophetically, prophet style before. I'm like, I have got to get me one of these. God is greater than government hoodies, because that's about. We were talking about what's on brand for each of us last hour with Anastasia. This is about as on brand of a theme for our show as you could possibly get. So thank you to these over for TPUSA. And I think that you can get them in, I don't know where Amy got mine. I think she got it in the TPUSA store. So, but they're very cool. So I wanted to give a shout out to that. And again, if you were watching Pop Culture Tuesday yesterday and you saw the videos we put out with the crowd reactions from the sneak peek in Detroit for Nefarious, the interview that we did with the pastor who gave it an enthusiastic endorsement, including for your high school youth ministries to see the movie as well. Those videos are on all my social channels here this morning as we speak. They're on all my social channels this morning I just mentioned. So Twitter, at Steve Deace Show, Steve Deace on Gab, Facebook, MeWe, and at Steve Deace Show on Getter as well, at Real Steve Deace on Truth Social. You'll get those videos. Please help spread the word. And we're getting down to nitty-gritty time now, and the competition is fierce for screens. So thank you for all of your help. You guys have been tremendous. And the movie, I know most of you have not seen it yet. I promise you, the movie will repay the investment that you have preemptively made it. So thank you. All right, let's get to it. Buy, sell, or hold. This is where you in the audience, you get to determine what we're going to be talking about for the next half hour or thereabouts. You can give us a prediction, a prophecy, a list, a topic. Aaron has selected it. Once he reveals it, Todd, you and I will decide, are we going to buy that? Are we going to sell it? We maybe even offer up a reason why. If we, however, use hold for any reason whatsoever, you have to let Lindsey Graham perform your next physical. No?
No.
What if he's licensed?
Worse. I don't trust the experts.
I don't trust. Well, he's already an attorney. So there's already a reason to distrust him. He's already a lawyer. Throw doctor in there, and now you're like, I really don't want that guy anywhere near me. All right, when I drop my trousers. Correct. And there's other reasons why you don't want that, but that's not important now. So let's get to it. Aaron, go ahead.
We will begin with Tavy Moore, too, who says it's an easy one. The Monday, the 17th of April broadcast will have the highest listenership ever for the show. Probably just a coincidence.
Nice line. I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, you think about last year and What's a Woman did for Matt. And I love Matt to death, and he deserves everything that has come his way as a result of that film. I think it's one of the most important pieces of content that our industry / movement has produced in all the time I've either been a consumer of it or now a creator within this space. And even Anastasia will tell you, she was kind of flirting with whether to kind of return to the values that she was raised with. And so she was kind of at that stage where she was kind of getting exhausted listening to what the world had to say. And because she's my kid, though, doesn't want to admit that dad's right because she's just like me and, will do things out of spite, which I completely respect. And really, it was watching What's a Woman and realizing this is absolutely just insane. What am I even thinking? I got to set my own ego aside here. She'll tell you that. I got to set my own ego aside here and admit my parents were just right about some things. This is just damned insane. And so that movie took his show. A year and a half ago, if you would have looked at the combined, the total audiences of what Matt had and what we had, it probably would have been very similar. And that movie took him to the stratosphere. He's probably the next name after Beck, Bongino, and Shapiro, probably for the biggest platforms on the right. Probably him and like Charlie Kirk would probably be in that next tier. Fair. Maybe a couple other names I'm forgetting, but those two would be in that next tier.
I honestly think I don't think he takes second place anymore at the Daily Wire.
You don't? Okay.
I think he's right up. They're A and B. They're just 1A, 1B.
All right. So you view him and Shapiro as equals almost. Okay.
I do.
All right. In terms of platform size. I'm not in this movie. Matt's all over the movie. He's the the lodestar of the film. He goes all the way to Africa, and I'm not in this movie. In fact, I put Glenn Beck. I made a movie and put someone else in it. I put Glenn Beck in my movie instead of me. So I don't know how much the movie, even if it is very successful, will raise my visibility. I'm not the star of it. I'm not in the movie. I don't know. I'm sure it'll have some impact. I don't think it'll have a What's a Woman impact, though. So for that reason, I think I'll sell. But I have no other way of gauging something like that.
I will sell only because of the last 3 years. Had this movie come out before the last 3 years, I think I would have bought. But because you've told us this, we have been like next day appointment viewing to deal with the insanity of COVID.
The you meaning the audience.
Yeah.
You're talking to them.
Yeah, you've told us this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you will do this, but I think you've been doing this for a long time because of the uniqueness of what we've done.
Next up, we go to Tyler Morgan. This one might be in both of your wheelhouses, probably in Steve's wheelhouse. With WrestleMania 39 this weekend, my son, 6-year-old son, Benjamin, gave me this top 5 wrestler entrance songs.
If it's before 2002, I'm all in on this.
Bret Hart, Heart Attack.
Yeah, that's my era, you bet. Yeah. Now, there's an obvious one missing here. I mean, the Road Warriors used to come into Iron Man by Black Sabbath, right? Wasn't that what the Road Warriors used to come into?
I don't know.
Remember the makeup and everything else, those guys?
Yeah.
I thought they came into Iron Man by... Didn't they come into Iron Man from Black Sabbath?
I don't remember.
That was dope AF, man.
I do not know.
Okay.
Number 4, Ultimate Warrior, Unstable. Number 3, Chris Jericho, Judas. Number 2, Cody Rhodes, Kingdom. And number 1, Hulk Hogan, Real Americans.
I don't know number 2. That's post me. I don't know that one. But you got the right number 1. I mean, I'm a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. I'm a real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life. Dude, I owned the wrestling album. I bought that, okay? I watched the WWF cartoon as a kid. I mean, Todd Zylstra, who lived on Den Hartog Street there in Wyoming, we used to reenact great wrestling matches from the pool in his backyard. One of the proudest moments of my childhood, man, was coming off his deck. Like Jimmy Superfly Snuka came off the top of the steel cage against Don Morocco with the giant elbow, okay? I mean, yeah. I mean, but there's other than Real American, the greatest entrance music of all time is Ric Flair coming into Thus Spoketh Zarathustra, otherwise known as the theme from 2001, okay? I mean, Ric Flair coming into that has to be, walk that aisle, you got to be the man, you got to beat the man. Woo! I mean, that has to be on the list, man. That has to be on the list, and for that, brother, even though you have the right number 1,
for that, brother.
Yeah, brother. For that mistake, okay? I mean, I'm doing you a favor, and you'll admit, you're right, Steve. Thank you. I needed that rebuke. You can't miss that, man. And for that, I got to sell. And because you and I both know you couldn't miss that one, so I sell.
It's clear he's younger than us, though.
Yeah,
because I don't even.
I think it's a 6-year-old son that actually did it, not him.
I stopped watching 5. Yeah, well, I know 5 and I know 1. The other, I mean, I never watched the Ultimate Warrior. I'm aware of his existence, but look how happy you made Steve Deace right there. That was
some great moments, man, from my childhood. You know what? Now that I think about it, can I change my mind?
Sure.
Or should I just double down on what I know is a wrong decision out of ego, like we were talking last hour? The fact that your 6-year-old son has Hulk Hogan's Real American number 1 demonstrates. What's his name again?
Let's see. Benjamin was his
Benjamin.
son.
No, the dad.
Oh, let's see. Tyler.
You have raised that. You are raising that young man right. I mean, if he knows that that's the number 1 stage entrance song, that song was out 40 years before he was born. You are doing one hella job as a dad if your son knows that deserves to be number 1. So I was wrong. You should now rebuke me. I made the mistake. I own it. And I heartily buy your list on those grounds.
My favorite wrestling memory is me and my brother wrestling, and I'm 3 years older than him, and he was always Hulk Hogan, and then I would be like Barry O, and I would beat him. I don't know if you know Barry O, you know he is the bottom of the food chain of that area, the worst wrestler you can think of, and that would be me.
Would we call them? Would they called like? Well, in boxing they're called tomato cans. Are they called toys in wrestling? Right, you're just out there to get that. When like the Saturday afternoon show, the syndicated show, because that would be like the previews for the main events, and they'd always wrestle the nobody toys. Those guys just go out there to lose. Yes, yeah.
All right, moving on. This is a very specific list. I don't know. I don't think we'll recognize like the first 4 on this list, so we'll kind of run by these. This is from Mike Rader, who says these are the top 10 actors with the best voices of all time. Number 10.
I know all these. Okay.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
Number 10, Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
So that's Negan, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's Negan.
Great voice.
It's a good voice.
Yeah.
Number 9, Keith David.
That's a good voice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Max von.
He's the dad in Firestarter, right? That's Keith David? Isn't he the dad? The original Firestarter. The original one.
I think
so.
No.
Okay.
Number 8, Max von, is it Sydow?
Sydow.
Sydow?
Yeah, one of the most underrated villain portrayals of all time is Max von Sydow as Ming the Merciless in the Flash Gordon movie that has the Queen soundtrack. Flash, you know what I'm talking about? Okay. I'm Flash Gordon, quarterback, New York Jets.
I don't think voice actor, though. And tragically underused, as so many things were poorly done in the very first Star Wars Rey.
Yes.
I mean, my goodness.
But he has a great voice, so I'll buy. Yeah.
Number 7, Christopher Lee. Count Dooku.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You bet. Yeah.
Number 6, Morgan Freeman. Has to be way higher.
Yeah. If anything needs to be higher, you're right. Yeah.
Number 5, Charleston Heston.
Yeah, I mean,
in his prime, absolutely.
You bet. Yeah. It's a good list so far.
Number 4, Orson Welles.
Of course.
Classic. Yeah.
Number 4, Sam Elliott.
Yeah, I'd put him lower on the list, but yeah, I'm fine with him being there. You bet.
Number 2, Sean Connery.
Yes.
Yes. That's a dude right there, man.
Top 5.
That's
I don't know
even other dudes are like,
but
damn, bro.
Yeah.
If I was a chick, I'd be asking you out right now. That's what other dudes thought with a young Sean Connery. Yes.
And number 1, James Earl Jones.
I mean, it's the greatest voice acting of all time is James Earl Jones as Darth Vader.
Yes.
Did you guys know that David Prowse, who played Darth Vader in the suit, had no idea when the whole time and that he was going to be replaced, you know? And so they're acting the movie out and he's got this kind of squeaky voice and Lucas is like, that ain't happening. Okay. And so he didn't find out until he went to like see the movie that it's not his voice in the suit, you know? And he was like bitter about that the whole rest of his career. Yeah. Even died pretty bitter about it even. Yeah.
Patrick Oney says, buy, sell, or hold, the Baltimore Ravens should move on from Lamar Jackson.
I'm going to sell. You don't just move on from a guy who's 26 and has already been a league MVP. To me, I think sometimes people can each have a reason for why they want what they want, and they just can't come to an agreement. Okay. And, you know, I've experienced that a few times in the making of this movie. Some people we thought we could work with or thought this was going to happen. You just sometimes, no one's wrong, no one's bad. It's just the terms each are looking for legitimately can't be reached mutually. It is not wrong that a 26-year-old man that's playing the most dangerous sport on planet Earth, for which there is a limited shelf life, is asking for a fully guaranteed contract, especially when that man, again, is one of the handful, him, Aaron Rodgers, how many, Pat Mahomes, are those the only 3 players currently playing in the NFL right now that have been named an MVP? It's not a very long list.
Yeah.
It is not a long list. If there's more names, it's only like 1 or 2 others, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. On the other hand, there's nothing wrong with the Baltimore Ravens saying what the Browns did with Deshaun Watson was ridiculous. And because of the risk of injury, that's why we don't have guaranteed deals in the NFL, and we just can't, we'll pay you whatever you want. But guaranteeing it, if you go out there and blow your knee, and we can't, I mean, that would kill us with the salary cap. We can't afford that. Both sides have legit reasons for why they want what they want. I don't think there's a villain here. I just think people whose, interest may not necessarily align in this case. That's all.
It would almost make sense at this point for Rodgers and him to just switch teams.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
They just need a new place. I mean,
yeah. You're still back to I know the whole league was really pissed at the Browns for that deal that they offered Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And it was,
especially given the circumstances.
Yes. So we're going to finally do a fully guaranteed deal, and we're going to give it to a guy that's literally, barely evaded the 5-0.
Of course.
And what precedent that sets for the rest of the league moving forward. Yeah.
Next up, we have David Geiger, who says Caitlin Clark is the most exciting women's basketball player of all time.
I think that's possible. At the very least, she's in a group with like Cheryl Swoops and Cheryl Miller. And so since we're talking pretty high cotton, I'll buy that. Yeah. Especially because of the way she plays. She's kind of the women's Steph Curry.
That's exactly right.
Just taking a step in from half court and launching, man. That's just fun as hell to watch that.
Yeah. Yep.
Next, we go to Peaceful Separation, who says Ron DeSantis' greatest contribution may actually be the Me Too factor he's created with other GOP governors. I think he means
getting them on board to follow his.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, what was the running joke in 2021? People like our colleague and friend Chad Prather were like, if you want to know what Greg Abbott's going to come up with, just watch what Ron DeSantis does, and about 3 or 4 weeks later, Greg Abbott will say, "Yeah, me too." Okay, so. And he's trying to do it right now on the central bank digital currency. He's trying to get basically every red state on board with in saying we're not going to impose and facilitate this. So I think that's a great point. Yeah,
agreed.
Bye.
We have Sirius as a myocarditis attack, who says Mount Rushmore of the most iconic action movies ever in no particular order: Terminator, Die Hard, James Bond, Top Gun.
Can I go back to the last one really quick, and then you can reset this?
Sure.
I actually think what that guy is saying, it could be a very potent argument for why you would support Trump for president instead. Because if your argument is there's only so much that can be done in Washington, and why would we take a guy who is able to essentially build a coalition of red states? Right. I mean, our prime directive on this show politically is making red states redder, red communities redder, getting people to leave blue states where they're wasting their citizenship, going to red states. We spent far more time the last couple of years talking about that than we have presidential politics, right? If your argument is, I think if we're playing game theory out, he actually has more freedom because of the sweeping wins he has done now in Florida and destroying the Democratic Party. The next 4 years, he could do more in creating a coalition of like-minded governors. I think that's a pretty potent argument, actually. And I think that you could be very intellectually honest. And, I mean, you know how much Daniel loves Ron DeSantis. They have been friends for years, know each other well. But I'll bet you if we put, maybe I'll even ask him when he comes on here in 10 minutes. If I put the Wonder Woman of Lasso of Truth around you, would you rather have Ron DeSantis in the White House or building a firewall of red states so that it almost doesn't matter who the hell's in the White House? I bet you he'd choose the latter almost.
Yeah.
If that's if you want to make that argument to me, I won't have an issue with that whatsoever. Just don't lie to me and don't lie to yourself. If you lie, I will step in. If we disagree, but it's honest, I will tip my cap.
All right, let's see. We'll reset this now. Sirius has a myocarditis attack. Mount Rushmore of the most iconic action movies ever in no particular order.
Okay. So just so you guys know, whenever we get these evers, because the options are so unlimited, I will buy unless you immediately say something I think, no way. Okay?
So we've got Terminator, Die Hard, James Bond, and Top Gun.
There's nothing there I would say no way. I would probably not have the Terminator franchise on there. But I also can understand, I mean, Terminator 2, I mean, is one of the greatest sequels, I think, in Hollywood history. Yeah. So I don't have a problem with the list, so I'll buy. Wouldn't be my list, but I'll buy it.
It would not be my list either. It's nothing against James Bond. I'm not a James Bond hater, but I don't think that would be in my top 4.
Not a big James Bond guy myself, but I recognize game.
Let's see. Next we have Chuck Gregory, who says everything as an aggregate since Avengers Endgame has been either a failure or a disappointment. And I think he's talking about everything.
The MCU?
Not just in the MCU, just movies in general. There have been some bright spots, but everything as an aggregate, he says, has been a failure or disappointment.
Yeah, it's been bad.
Okay. I mean, I had a very difficult time coming up with a top 10 movies this year, or for 2022. There were 5 that in most years would still make my list. The other 5, I just had to come up with 5 more, you know? For every Maverick, there is a 10 or 15 others that are like, what you doing? You know? So sadly, that is more true than I would like it to be as a cinephile, so I will buy.
Next, we go to Steven Skinner, who says Dallas, the Cowboys, will improve without Elliott.
I mean, I can see it. I mean, Tony Pollard was basically a better back than him last year. So I mean, I could see it. Sure. I don't know. Improve meaning offensive stats, wins. I mean, that could mean a lot of different thresholds.
The pressure to use him, though, I think, I think
what he did do, because Tony Pollard is not the biggest guy. He really did kind of accept the role that Jamal Williams had for the Lions last year. He did accept kind of the short yardage goal line guy, and there is certainly some value in that for sure. But I mean, he's already was surpassed by Tony Pollard. So as long as you get him back and healthy, I don't, at the very least, I don't think there'll be a drop off there at all.
Next, we go to Red Lego Brick, who says Trump's feud with DeSantis will do serious damage to the achievements made with DeSantis' leadership, ultimately causing Florida to regress back to a purple state.
I'm trying to think of why he thinks that, because that would make me contemplate if there is something I had not considered to buy this.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think it's far more likely that Florida goes back to a purple state because they don't have Ron DeSantis. Like, I don't even know. I should probably look it up. Do you know who the lieutenant governor is? I don't even know.
No.
All right. And so there's pluses and minuses to having a singular champion like that. I mean, the pluses are, you know who to go to when it goes down, right? The minuses are when that guy hits it by a bus, what's next? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's far more likely Florida would go back to a purple state for that reason. Again, we're just going to tell what we think is the truth here, right? I think a lot of people, whether they love Trump, like Trump, hate him, despise him, wherever they're at on the Trump, hierarchy of needs, okay, wherever you're at on that pyramid, I think most people know much of what Trump says is BS or bellowing. And you've either made your peace with that because you look at achievements. You love that because you know a lot of the people that disagree with you are lying to you anyway, so you don't care. Or you hate that because when he gaslights or he bellows, it goes against you see what I'm saying? Yeah. I think most people know going in, this isn't serious. A lot of these, claims and, the boisterousness, it's just bellowing. I think most people know that. And so I don't think there is long-term damage from that. I don't. I think it's far more likely Florida goes purple because it doesn't have Ron DeSantis.
We go to Mike LaPon's Silent Assassins next, who says, when DeSantis is asked in a debate, was the 2020 election stolen, he'll say yes.
I think he'll say everywhere but Florida, or not in Florida, or something like that. Because we actually took election integrity seriously, And so that's how we went from a state where we went from hanging chads to we were the first major state. We had everything wrapped up and tidy by 10 o'clock Eastern. Good night, good luck, and drive home safely. I think he'll say that. I think he'll say it wasn't in Florida, or certainly everywhere other than Florida, something along those lines.
I don't think he will be that cut and dry. It's too easy to hijack what that means. But I think you say, listen, they're obviously trying to steal it, and they've done it in more elections in 2022. And the fact that we still do not have answers, sufficient follow-up to those two elections, is why we need to do better.
This is why the Kari Lake case is so important.
Yeah. Yes.
Kari Lake is pursuing the chain of custody of the ballots. Everything we set here for weeks after the election, yelling at the Trump team. Enough with the fantastical theories, even if they're true. Okay, we can't possibly prove that stuff before the certification deadlines. The chain of custody is the thing in which you'll catch the conscience of the king. Where do these ballots come from? Why are they all so uniform? How come the rejection rate is lower in these rando ballots than we get in any other election cycle? How do you possibly explain that mathematically? That's the argument.
Yes.
And that's the argument she's made. And that's why I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how big a win she's gotten, but it's why she's gotten anywhere. Why she's gotten any standing at all is because they have made very focused arguments. They clearly learned from the mistakes of what happened in the aftermath of the 2020 election.
Correct.
Next, Brad Epley says the over-under for how many times Steve will see Nefarious this year is 30.
Oh, we're going way over, guys. I mean, I'm pushing 20 right now, just with the screenings I've done around the country and who I've showed it to. We're doing an outreach thing at our church with it on Thursday. We're going to do the premiere, our red carpet premiere in Dallas on Tuesday. There is the Des Moines red carpet premiere on April 12th. We're going to do an opening night event in my old hometown of Grand Rapids on April 14th. Yeah, I mean, we're good. And then I'm going to want to just sneak into some theaters around town just to watch people's reactions and stuff like that. So we're pushing 20 right now. So you bet we're going to hit 30. Yeah.
There you have it.
Next, Jake allegedly says Trump was the last Republican president.
I think
Lindsey Graham is coming.
My gosh. I think this could be true, but probably not for the reasons this is being asked. I don't believe you allow widespread voter fraud. Let me rephrase it. Widespread voter fraud is not how you lose your civilization. A lost civilization permits widespread voter fraud. I actually am much more discouraged. I was angry, very angry, on election night on the Blaze stage on 2020, the day after on Glenn's show when I got our company demonetized on Fakebook. I was angry watching that happen. I was demoralized on the stage on election night 2022. Because now there's no more excuses. Trump's not on the ballot. Hey, Chase, man, I don't care about any of that. Straight up, do you like the demonic direction of the country? And I thought for sure that next level of American who may not necessarily be constantly with us, but is not insane, would show up. And they did not. And almost all incumbents got reelected everywhere, with limited exception. And that, to me, is a sign that a lot of people have, frankly, just kind of given up at this point. And that is why I could buy this, is because of that. I'm going to sell, though, because if I allow myself to think that is true right now, it will personally demoralize me. I was joking with Todd and Aaron before the show. I get out of funks by fights. I need fights. That's what fires me up, is a fight. And if I start believing that there's no hope in the fight, this won't last much longer. So I'm going to sell on this just because I need it to not be true right now for me on a personal level.
I have to sell if I believe the things I believe about Ron DeSantis currently, so I'll sell.
All right, that's it for this segment of Buy, Sell, or Hold. More coming up in the overtime.
Yep, we will have what remains of your Buy, Sell, or Hold propositions coming up in the overtime. We will have the prophet of woe and lamentation, though, when we come back for our final segment today. Stay tuned. Let's get to it. He is, and it is an appropriately and aptly earned title, the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation. And I'm reminded you're not going to be with us next week because we're going to be in Dallas for the premiere of Nefarious. So you're welcome to now bring us 2 weeks of spite. I'm sorry, woe and lamentation. Our good friend and colleague Daniel Horowitz. How are you, brother?
Well, just like Jeremiah, I'm about to be thrown in the pit. I'm going to jail. Give me, I have a give, send, go page, $1 million in 24 hours. Let's go.
Or God will call me home. I think I've heard that somewhere before. Anyway, all right. Let's get to it. It is the 3rd anniversary of what I think it was really the end of the Trump presidency. I think you could, 15 days to flatten the curve. I mean, I wasn't supportive of that at the time, but I can understand why in the midst of the mass panic, let's just get it, as Dick Vitale would say, get a TO, baby. I can understand that. But it was the 30 days to flatten the curve when nothing outside of New York and a few other cities were smoldering ash, and we're looking at recession and everything else. That's really when I think the Trump presidency was lost. The agenda was lost. These governors are now basically, especially in the blue states, and Mike DeWine, but I repeat myself, basically now are indefinitely empowered to do to their people whatever they want. Fauci has given his own fiefdom to basically be the papal head of blue state America. Debbie Birx essentially now takes over the Trump White House from this time forward. I think this was the day, the ballot harvesting, everything that we saw in that wretched year, the decision made this day, I think, is when that year was lost. Your thoughts?
Well, it's not just that year, but we're paying for it to this very day. And that's the thing. We can understand that, you didn't know the whole truth. You didn't have on your bingo card that this was a pandemic from day one. We're trying to catch our breath. But it was the fact that the man never got off of it. And I would argue, and I just did a column on this, it's not just March 29th. I mean, it was for the remainder of the year. He was saying he saved lives with the lockdowns. He refused to fight on really any of those issues with the lockdowns. And then obviously to this very day with the vaccines as well. But Steve, I think this is what a lot of people forget about him. There's a central point that people don't realize about Trump that we live through on every issue. And two of them I was dealing with today. One of them, the First Step Act, a staffer of Rand Paul who was stabbed. It turns out the career violent criminal who was released under the First Step Act. The Kim Kardashian, Javanka, Brooke Rollins, Koch brothers brought into the White House, pushing that. We blocked it successfully under the Obama administration because all Republicans opposed it. But once Trump supported it, we had no opposition to it. As you well know, I was the last man standing on that. And all of this has one common thread. People see Trump on the campaign trail. He's at the top of his game on the campaign trail.
He is.
He will say, He really is. He'll say what you want to hear, and he won't back down. So he'll say, John McCain wasn't a war hero, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I mean, he's going to get crushed. No, he stands in that breach. Your wife is ugly. I ain't backing down, okay? So, wow, okay, maybe it's not my style. I wish you wouldn't say it, but that's the type of persona that's going to be a guy who could burn it down. We heard a lot 8 years ago that, look, he's not a conservative per se, but now's not the time for conservatism. It's the time to burn down the system. And we broadly agree with that, but there was one problem with that. When it comes to governing, when he is confronted with an inflection moment, a clamor in the polls, in the media, in the NGOs and Republicans and, Chris Christie's and Lindsey Graham's and Koch brothers, and they say this is what needs to be done. If you don't pass this bill and then have Jerome Powell print money. Jerome Adams was the Surgeon General. Karen,
another terrible hire, who continues to lie daily about COVID and the jab on his Twitter feed. Yeah, but the stock market's going to crash. You can't have a government shutdown. He's actually said this when he was still running. You can't default on the debt. He gets very scared of those things. He sees this is where it's at policy-wise. The Dreamers. Do you want to look like you're mean to the Dreamers? Criminal justice reform. This is where it's at. There's two elements you need to govern. You need brains, because you have to understand the issues, and you need courage to stand for something just beyond your own self-survival at that moment. And you have to be willing to talk through an issue, articulate through the fire, and then be willing to take a hit when you believe in the long term something is both strategically, policy-wise, but also politically winning, to take that temporary hit to serve a broader end that you think, you invest in a stock, it's going to go down, but on net it's going to go up. Trump, I mean, there's no 3D chess there. It's a 5-year-old playing checkers. It's whatever is literally in front of his eyes at that moment. You saw with DeSantis, he started off with skyrocketing high approval rating his first year. He took a hit with those first few months of COVID, the whole DeSantis thing. He went down to 50, maybe a little bit below 50, was mediocre before he recovered and was vindicated. And he was willing to see that. And I would argue that, Steve, even based on what you said last week, DeSantis views politics just like he does policy. I would have said, come on, get out there, be the hero that Trump's not going to be. Go and say you're going to, shoot down the NYPD and not extradite this and this, even though he was never going to be picked up.
And then it turns out, I mean, I don't know, we're a week later, it still hasn't happened. And who knows if it ever was. This man is willing to take a hit to look at a broader term. He is the best at governing. And that's the question. Do you want campaigning or do you want governing? Trump doesn't burn things down. He's very into stability. He is scared of instability. I don't know if you played the clip yet on your show, but when Hannity surprisingly asked him about Christopher Wray, which people forget wasn't just a holdover, but that was his new appointee to the FBI.
Yeah, that's what we replaced James Comey with. Yes. Yeah,
and we were rallying against at the time, at least pick a guy like Giuliani. And the thing about Trump is, I think what our base likes is when you catch him on an interview, one-on-one, there's no games. He will tell you what's on his mind. There's no finesse. And it's very endearing. And I think you have to kind of watch the video. I think he was very sincere. And he's like, look, the Democrats kind of wanted him. Chris Christie told me he's a good one. And that's how he reacts. That's how he governs. And then there's the second half of it is once he does that, he doubles down and doesn't make a mistake. And he bizarrely said, time will tell whether it's a mistake to have appointed Chris Wray. So even now, just like with the vaccines, he doubles down on it. This is what people don't understand. He doesn't burn down a system while governing. He burns it down while campaigning rhetorically, but that doesn't burn anything down. And the bottom line is you got to have the smarts. You got to understand the policy. You got to believe in taking a hit for yourself. And you got to surround yourself with people who share those values. Which candidate has those and which doesn't?
So let me pose a question to you that I actually just mentioned a few minutes ago for you came on, and I think I know how you'll answer, but let me see. If you had the choice, you got to decide. You can either put Ron DeSantis in the White House or you leave him in Florida for a full second term where he will instead build some form of a successful coalition of red state firewalls against Washington, so it almost doesn't matter who at all is president on several levels. Which would you prefer?
So there's ideally and there's pragmatically. I first was an idealist. I think I said on your show before, if this were a chess game and there were pieces on a board and I could manipulate them, here's what I would do. I would have Lisa Murkowski be the GOP nominee. So, I'm saying you get the uniparty sodomy in Washington anyway. We have a 90-10 left to Senate. So let's just make it official and stop all this fanfare. So people will finally slay that golden calf. That's done. We are done. You ain't saving that.
This is the most
Washington's
Daniel answer ever. Go ahead.
Washington's
yes,
Iran.
Yep.
Then I would take DeSantis and make him governor of Florida forever and do exactly as you said, lead that coalition of de facto national divorce. And then I would take Trump. Remember, what does Trump excel at? Not governing. That's what we have DeSantis in there for, at holding rallies, hyping up the base, applying the pressure, traveling around to every other stupid fake red state and having them join and do better than what DeSantis is doing. And boom, and that's how you have a force multiplier. That's where we need to head. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that we don't have a red state revolution because they all suck and they're terrible, every one of them. And then DeSantis cannot, Murphy's Law, you have to have no term limits in Texas where we need them, but we have them in Florida where I wish we didn't have them. At best, you're only netting another 2 years out of him. Okay, if he were to be governor, there's nowhere else for him to go. I don't believe in the presidency being the end all. It's not. But the bottom line is the platform of running for the presidency is the big enchilada. That's what everyone cares about. That's what everyone hypes. So you may as well use it for our momentum. You need to have that one leader that we never had, and people hope Trump would have been that, to create other mini-me's in the other red states, from governor to AG to state legislature to county positions on down. I don't know if you've seen, DeSantis has said some of this in some of his interviews. I want all them to succeed. I want them to be better than me in some of these other states. It's not just about me and running for president, he said to Brian Kilmeade on Fox, but I wish red states could be doing all of this right now. Ryan Gerdusky, who's the head of really one of the most effective, forward-looking, innovative ideas, the 1776 Project with school boards, he said that DeSantis was the only governor who reached out. And he's done this. If you look at a state to county level, he's rebuilt the counties, made them based, even flipped Broward County school board positions. To me, I don't have much hopes for him as president because I don't have hopes for anyone. What are you going to do with the 90-10 Senate? What are you going to do with how do you fix the military? How do you fix HHS? How do you fix DOJ? There's nothing to drain. But I feel almost like his leadership of the party in driving the debate towards our issues and strategies in the red states, that in itself, the platform of running for the president and possibly being president as party leader, that is where you have the utility in the world we live in. I think that is the most effective use of him.
Final question. Trump actually said in that Hannity interview about Christopher Wray, maybe I made a mistake. That is the closest to any statement of repentance publicly we've heard from him on virtually anything ever. If Trump were to become repentant, and you and I aren't God, we cannot determine if something is sincere or not, and a campaign doesn't provide necessarily the long-term fruit of someone's life to decide to tell you if that's true, but at least publicly repentant for what happened here with Operation Warp Speed, in particular with Operation Warp Speed. Do you think, how do you think that would change or alter the looming race between him and Ron DeSantis?
Oh, I think he would box out the entire need for Ron DeSantis because despite the fact that everything I just told you still applies, I think you and I both agree in terms of the Cheez-Its versus the steak. People want the Cheez-Its. They want the sugar. They enjoy the show. Whether that's enough to bring him over the finish line without repenting, maybe, maybe not. It could be. I don't know. But if he were to actually come on board with that issue, I think he would win easily, yes.
So tomorrow, Ron DeSantis says, you know what, I've heard from too many of my, Donald Trump says I've heard from too many of my supporters. And whatever this vaccine may or may not have done in the early days of its unveiling, it's clear that this thing has become way too dangerous, way too toxic. We shouldn't be doing 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th rounds of boosters. We're going to repeal the PERP Act and go after the 86 Amnesty Act when I am president. What's that do to the GOP primary in your view? End it?
It clears the field. It clears the field because it again, all our base needs is rhetoric, promises, and that's what we've learned. And also, by the way, just so you know, he is eligible for 2 terms because he wasn't president before. That was Mnuchin and Tillerson and Javanka and Birx and Fauci. So he actually could serve 2 terms because he wasn't president. I mean, this has been one big campaign. I mean, I hate to sound cynical, but I actually think people are very much they so badly want to see the good in him, and this is pretty broad across the Republican electorate. Not all of it, but I would say maybe a majority of it. If he were to show that humility and at least in word, if not deed, show that he has changed on a couple of issues, I really think he would clear the field.
I think it would. Well, first of all, he's shown no self-awareness, remorse, repentance, his entire public profile here. So I do think it would give people a fresh look and a reboot, regardless of the fact it also happens to be the worst pox on his record to begin with. But yeah, it's interesting, which then makes you wonder, knowing how much he loves to win, if this is all that is being asked of him, is we are eager to forgive you for one of the worst policy decisions of all time that people are still dying suddenly from. If you just show us any remorse and repentance, and he's not willing to go there, then I think that speaks pretty much volumes about him as an individual. If that's really the path to the vindication that he is seeking. Good to see you again, Daniel. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks, brother. Thank you.
Take care.
You bet. Thoughts on our conversation with Mr. Horowitz?
Well, that last part with you, him loving to win is not what drives him. I mean, I know somebody who loves to win. I mean, I'm looking at him right now. Is he like he's nothing like you. Because you like to win, you will alter your tactics. He's not changing.
Or do we define winning differently?
He likes adulation. He likes attention.
Yeah,
he's like, that's not winning.
Winning is to him is an ego affirmation. Winning to me is truth vindication. Those are two different things. And sometimes they can be aligned, but my ego doesn't give a rip what you think about me. It just wants to know if I'm telling you the truth and I'm right about what I'm saying.
And his ego has been given a boost by losing. Look at what they had to do to me. And he's not wrong about that, but they still did it, and he's still not president right now, and he's not altering the tactics. And he's not going to win a general, whether he makes that repentant move or not right now. It's going to take something even more than that.
I think a repentant move, though, would cause some people to say, maybe he's figured. I think some people would. I do. But maybe I'm wrong. Aaron, what say you on the way out of here?
Yeah, none of that's going to happen.
I know.
So we're done. We're done here. Moving on. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, I just, until I see it, what was your mantra of 2016, Todd? Status quo is the status quo until it's not anymore. I think that was 2015 or 2016.
There you go.
The status quo is what you just lamented about Donald Trump. And until that is not the case, it's the same reason why I'm picking Donald Trump to win the Republican primary. Not because I want him to, not because I'm going to support him necessarily, unless something changes, but because it's the status quo for now.
Fair enough. All right, we've got some more buy-seller holds to go through. We'll do that in overtime for Blaze TV subscribers at blazetv.com/Deace. Go there, become a subscriber now. Don't miss it. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow. John 3:17.